Hello everybody, welcome back to IsleOfSkinny. It is Clyde here. Today is going to be a really fun video. I've always found that it is really important as an artist to be able to look back on your past work retroactively and really take in what you were trying to say as an artist at that time and what was important to you in that moment in your life. And I cannot think of a better example to cover than Maroon's Virus, a short film I released in 2024. Maroon's Virus is a film that is very underrated on my channel. It has some of the least amount of views out of all of my stuff. Maroon's Virus was an idea that I've had since middle school for a film. The whole premise was actually a feature-length film, but until I am at the level where I can be making feature-length films, I decided to give it a short film run, and I really think that's where the story and the most impactful aspects of it really succeeded. In this video today, I'm going to be taking a deep look at Maroon's Virus, what I was trying to say as an artist back then, and really what was going on in my life and what we can learn from the story. One thing about Maroon's Virus that I think is very interesting is that it is now more relevant than ever. I think the film is more relatable now than it ever has been, and I really encourage you guys to give it a watch. It is kind of rough. There are some technical aspects that are messed up, and I did make it on my phone, but you know, if you want to have a good look at some of the past work I've done and kind of get an idea of my voice as a creator, I think it's a great start. So I'm going to put a card up here for you guys so you can watch that. Without further ado, let's begin. First, let's start with a basic summary of Maroon's Virus. What happens, who it stars, and what it is about. Before we get into any of the crazy details or any of the plot, meanings, and ethics and all of that stuff about this film, first, let's do a quick summary of the events of what happens. Maroon's Virus opens with a shot of Tessa Green's house and leads to a hazy, dreamlike shot of her walking into the living room. She sits down with a can of soda on the seat next to her friend Bella, who is seemingly on edge. From there on, the two of them begin to reminisce and discuss the current events of their life. Bella brings up the fact that it has been 2 months since their peer Hallie Robichaux has lost her life. Bella wants to discuss it and talk about it, but Tessa is on edge, defensive, and shuts down any chance she gets of bringing up Hallie. The two are waiting on a phone call from their friend Lewis, whose father Rusty is presumed to be a police officer and is about to offer up information about what happened to Hallie. The two of them begin to start arguing immediately about the possibility that Hallie may have took her own life and get into a very heated confrontation. Bella wants to be realistic and talk about their past with Hallie and the relationship they used to have with her, which is presumed to have had bullying involved. Tessa, on the other hand, is in complete denial and delusion. She is stoic, cold, and shuts down any chance Bella gets to put any blame on themselves. Before the argument escalates more, the phone rings and Tessa stares down at it emotionlessly. After the intro title card, Tessa is seen on her laptop in the living room, checking her emails. The conversation earlier with Bella seemingly have a huge effect on her mental state. On her computer, it is revealed that she had just received an email from Hallie Robichaux's old email address with a link. Tessa opens the link, leading to an old Betty Boop cartoon, which Tessa is immediately unsettled with. The cartoon continues normally until the computer then glitches out, leading to tons of errors, which causes Tessa to panic and turn on the light. When the light is turned on, the computer is officially shut down and Tessa is left in shock. The next scene shows Tessa and Bella having a phone conversation about what happened with her computer, in which Tessa details how she's the only one home, since her mom Vanessa is on a lover's getaway. Tessa is desperate to get her computer fixed since she does college work on it, and Bella suggests that she calls their friend Connie, which Tessa immediately is hesitant. Bella teases Tessa about her crush on Connie, and Tessa quickly realizes she has no choice. Connie stops by Tessa's house, and the two of them discuss what happened to the computer. Connie decides to help Tessa out, although she admits she doesn't have a lot of computer experience. Tessa teases her, saying,
"What are you talking about, dude? I thought you were, like, great at fixing computers and all that."
Well, kind of, I guess. I'll try.
Faith, Bella, and I used to cheat off of you all the time in web design.
That's because I let you.
Tessa is overwhelmed by the situation and is completely unsure of what to do. Connie eventually gets the computer on, but things aren't as they seem. Tessa walks in and discovers a timer on the computer. Connie says that her computer has been infected with some kind of virus and that she has no idea how to get rid of the screen or stop the timer. This causes Tessa to panic and leave the room, in which Connie shortly follows. Tessa emotionally begins to discuss her fear of what is happening with the computer and suggests that maybe Hallie has something to do with it since the email was from her account. Connie is quick to comfort Tessa and reassure her that this is nothing more than an internet troll or a virus and not anything personal or spiritual. Tessa begs Connie to stay over and wait the timer out with her, in which Connie agrees. Connie decides to be there for Tessa and the two embrace. Tessa fully breaks down, showcasing a vulnerability that we have yet to see from her. Nighttime hits, and the two of them are snuggled up on the couch asleep. Tessa wakes up and walks over to the laptop to check on it, and is greeted with words.
What the hell? Can you hear me? Hey, Connie? You come here.
Tessa panics and grabs her jacket, ready to leave the house. When she goes into the living room to get Connie, Connie is missing, nowhere to be found. And when Tessa turns to the side, she spots the front door wide open. Tessa closes the door and sits back down at the computer, which now shows a list of names of people in Tessa's life, including Connie, Bella, their friend Louis, Louis's dad Rusty, and more of her friends. She panics as the computer teases her and tells her everything is her fault. The computer then asks her to look up before it shuts down. Before Tessa can do anything, she is met with the crackly, cold sound of someone's voice, detailing how long it took for them to die.
47 minutes, 34 seconds, 9:13 p.m.
You're not real.
One car, one garage, one tank.
You're not real. You're not real.
Tessa won't look up as the mysterious person begs for her to look at her and face her. As the sound of a running engine begins to play in the background, Tessa slowly looks up at the person speaking to her and is met with the smiling face of Hallie. So with this in mind, there are three main themes to Maroon's virus. There is forgiveness, there is guilt, and there is justice. I'm going to be going into all three of them and how this film was made to showcase these three different themes, as well as the writing, the story, and really what side you should be taking when watching this film. The first theme is forgiveness. Forgiveness is something that we all crave as people. It is something that us, especially as we enter adult life, it's something that we really validate, and it's something that shows maturity, and it shows kindness, and it shows a level of empathy. And forgiveness is something that can be offered, and forgiveness is also something that can be taken away. And in this case, Tessa really struggles with forgiveness, not only towards the situation herself, but with herself. Tessa is a character that is doomed from the start. She has absolutely no idea the storm that is about to hit her, yet she knows exactly what she's done, and she doesn't own up to it. There's a huge stark contrast between Tessa and every other character in this movie. For example, forgiveness happens when Bella and Tessa are arguing. Forgiveness is a theme that plays throughout. When Bella asks Tessa, do you think this was our fault? Do you think Hallie is gone because of us, because of the things we used to say, the things we used to do to her? And then Tessa is so quick to deny it and go, no, absolutely not. That is not what happened. Bella is like, then why does it feel like it? This is an example of Bella seeking out forgiveness. It is a theme that Tessa kind of avoids. forgiveness isn't really in the picture because Tessa doesn't believe she's done anything wrong, whereas Bella knows what has happened and wants forgiveness and wants to know why she feels this guilt and how to have penance. The next biggest theme of Maroon's virus, in my personal opinion, is guilt. It was something that was used in the marketing. Guilt is something that we all go through. It is a very common human thing to feel guilt for things that are your fault, aren't your fault, or just out of your control in general. Guilt rules a lot of people's lives, and in this case, guilt completely takes over Tessa. From the very opening scene to the final moment of this movie, Tessa is completely riddled with guilt. Tessa is in complete denial and acts like nothing happened. It's also a form of delusion. And when that phone rings, the guilt on her face is immeasurable. She's scared, she's guilty, but her face is stoic. Guilt is something that takes over Tessa for the remainder of the entire film. When her computer crashes, she immediately calls Bella and is immediately searching for an outlet and something to look for, because the guilt of the situation and the reality that maybe something more ulterior is behind this virus could really mess with her. Tessa is a character that just fights for every second to not be the bad guy. And when the reality comes that maybe it is something more ulterior, she completely shuts down, breaks down, and feels immense guilt over what happened. Tessa is very interesting in the scenes with Connie. Connie is introduced to the story to kind of act as a light, the yin to Tessa's yang. Connie is a character that is very pleasant. She's very kind, she's nerdy, she's empathetic, and she is just a solid, wonderful person. Whereas on the other side, you have Tessa, character and a person who is kind of a dick. Tessa is a human being. She has emotions. She's not stone-faced. She's not cold. She does have a playfulness to her. But when it comes to more heavy emotions like sadness, anger, guilt, she doesn't know how to process them and instead turns to bury these burdens onto other people. She buries these burdens in Bella in the opening scene. She buries these burdens on Connie when she breaks down. Tessa is basically a character that does not know how to think for herself. When I wrote this film, I was in a very dark place in my life. I was feeling a lot of guilt. I had just left a very close friendship of quite a long time. I was feeling a lot of guilt. I was very depressed over it. Tessa's character really came from this dark place of self-blame and self-hatred and loathing towards myself in the situation that happened to me. As I get older, I really understand what I was trying to say with Tessa, and really the big thing about Tessa and her guilt is it rules her life. Guilt takes over. She does not let guilt go. She doesn't let forgiveness happen. She lets guilt take over, and that ultimately leads in her demise. It's very important from a narrative standpoint that Tessa is pretty much to blame for almost everything that happens in this movie. How do we approach guilt? How do we approach forgiveness without looking internally? The final theme of Maroon's virus, and one that is more prominent in the final scenes, is justice. Hallie is getting justice for what happened to her. The big question that Maroon's virus asks, and the big ethics that this film asks the audience to look into, was Hallie justified? Does Tessa deserve what happens to her in the end of the movie? There is no right or wrong answer. Justice is a very morally gray word. There are aspects of justice that are agreeable. There are aspects of justice that are wrong. You can't help but understand why. And what I wanted to do with this film is I wanted to showcase not really a villain, but more of an antagonist in a sense, because we don't know who Hallie is, who she was. However, we see Tessa, we see Bella, we see Connie, we see Tessa's reaction to everything that has to do with Hallie. When we reach the end and Hallie finally confronts Tessa, is it justified? Is all of this worth it? For some people, you would say yes. Some people you would say no. On one hand, I know a lot of people that agree with Hallie's actions, and I can completely understand it. If the implications of the film are true, and Bella and Tessa were the ones to bully Hallie, and Hallie unalived herself because of the bullying, Hallie coming back to get revenge on Tessa is something that feels very justified. But with Tessa, with Bella, they both know it. The difference is one of them is willing to admit it, and the other is in complete denial and thinks she hasn't done anything wrong. On the other hand, however, people can empathize with Tessa. I've seen it before. Tessa does have human moments in this movie. She does cry. She does feel emotion. She does feel bad for what she has done. You can look at this from a different lens as well. You can look at this from the lens of Tessa. You can analyze that maybe they recognize that they've made mistakes in their life and no one deserves to be hurt over these mistakes, no matter how bad they are. Really, it is up to the audience ethics-wise. If you can empathize for Tessa in the end and understand Hallie or not, that's the big question that Maroon's virus poses for everybody. Now that we've kind of went into some of the bigger themes of Maroon's virus and, you know, what really happened with the film, I'd like to talk about some of the more subtle things that happen in this movie, such as certain filmmaking techniques that I use to really build onto the dread. One thing you will notice about this movie, it is very inaccessible. The name Maroon's virus itself is not an easy one to market. It's very easy to tell when a movie is going to do well on YouTube just by the name. For example, I have a short film on my channel called Smile, and Smile is a very easy horror cliche, and I do love that movie, and there's a reason it is that popular, because something about smiling is so unnerving to people. But the name Maroon's virus is very inaccessible. Who is Maroon, virus, and what do you mean? For a while, I contemplated changing the name. The idea that changing a name of a movie for more views when I really like the name of the movie and what it symbolizes, that's something I didn't want to let go of. It is a slow burn psychological horror. There's no gore, there's no blood, there's nothing like that, and usually you see a lot of that on this platform, which is understandable, and it is very well done. But the thing about Maroon's virus is, if I had any bloody moments, if I had any crazy moments or like jump scares or anything like that, I feel like all of that tension would have gone away. The idea with Maroon's virus was, the way I wrote it, was I started a scene with a box, and by the very end of the movie, I wanted to isolate the main character and the audience to a particular scene, almost like hands around someone's neck. I really wanted this film to be claustrophobic and full of dread. Maroon's virus has this really gross feeling of like, whose side should I be on? And when you're watching Tessa react to situations abnormally, you see these human moments from Tessa, and you understand that Tessa is a person, but there's something off about her. And I think that dread really builds up when Tessa really does get people to trust her. One of the biggest aspects of the script that I really enjoyed was having Connie fully trust Tessa. And despite maybe not believing in ghosts and, oh, this is like a possessed computer, because, you know, that's kind of bull honky, Connie does stay. I think in that regard, it's really important that Connie is one of the first things to go. As an audience, you connect with Tessa and you build a relationship with Connie through Tessa. And you already know that Tessa has feelings for Connie. So when you see them snuggling on the couch, the audience now has something to lose, despite maybe not feeling a certain way about Tessa. There is something to lose in this movie. You don't gain Tessa, but you gain knowledge. You gain an idea of the world and what these characters have been through. There are mentions of characters that you never see on screen, and that is on purpose. Mentions of Lewis, Rusty, Faith, Vanessa, Ross, like, who are these people? But that's the point. This is a world. These are people that are living beings in Tessa's world, and she cares about them. So to see their names on the computer and to lose them and lose their trust, it's something that really breaks Tessa. It makes the audience fall with her. There are movies on my channel that are very accessible, very easy to like. There's like Brother's Keeper has like jump scares. It's like a normal aspect ratio. Same with Smile. Oblivion, the final tapes is kind of like that too. Not the whole series, but Oblivion, the final tapes does that too. Maroon's virus is not. Maroon's virus has a boxed in aspect ratio. It's a darker film. The color grading is unsettling. It's a desaturated kind of bluish, depressing, moody flick. And it's quiet. There's mostly dialogue, and that's on purpose. Maroon's virus is, obviously in that boxed in ratio where it's just the squares on the side and then the top and the bottom to kind of give the frame a little bit of a taller feeling. But The frame itself asks for more. We shot Maroon's virus with a wide-angle lens, and I did that on purpose, because when you have a wide-angle lens, but you close in the sides, it makes the audience feel like they should be looking for more. That feeling is almost claustrophobic, especially when the film goes into handheld mode. It's a genuinely suffocating experience, and when you are stuck in that room with Hallie and Tessa and the shots are just so stable and stuck right there, you know you can't leave. There's a trippy kind of like drug dream aspect to this film. There's blurry radial shots all the time. There are fantasy transitions. There are motifs with sound such as wind chimes and drones that make you kind of feel like almost alien. The audience should feel completely uncomfortable in Tessa's shoes. We are really not sure if Tessa's shoes should be fitting. One thing about horror that I think is very fun is you get to play a lot with motivation, and you get to play with a character's goals and, you know, their setbacks. And I think Tessa in that regard is one of my most complicated characters, because on one hand, you can really understand like why Tessa is having bad things happen to her. She's obviously not a perfect person. However, on the other hand, Tessa has things about her that are human. She does cry, she does show emotion, she does show fear. But when the audience is put in a position to question if it's genuine, that's when the unsettling kind of claustrophobic dread comes in. And when you feel like you're on the wrong side of the fight and you know that the other side might win, it builds this really subtle fear within the audience, and it makes them paranoid about what is going to happen in the end. All in all, Maroon's virus was a very personal project to me. It was a reflection of my mindset at the time and what I was going through in my life. It begs the question, how far is too far? There's this aspect of justice and guilt and forgiveness and everything else in between that really makes the film a complicated storyline full of different webs and different ideas of what could happen or what might have happened. This film, I definitely think, is more of a thinking man's movie. There are things you don't really catch on a first watch. If you watch it a second time and you really pay attention to some of the details, you will catch stuff that maybe you didn't catch the first time, and I really appreciate that about the movie. Maroon's virus in that regard is some of the most independent and most thoughtful expression I've ever had with a movie. It's shot differently, it's acted differently, it's written differently, and everything that plays out differently, and that's on purpose. It's not supposed to be this like cliche jump scare horror movie. Maroon's virus is a slow burn psychological thriller, and I think in that regard it really delivers, especially in the final scene, on what it's trying to say. And despite technical issues, there's some audio issues and there's some video issues, because I was like 19 when I made it, mind you, on my smartphone too. It's really interesting to look back at that and see how passionate I was about that project and making something pretty thoughtful out of nothing. It's been really fun to look back at this retroactively and kind of take an idea and a look at what I was trying to say and what was going on in my life and how I was feeling at that time, because it's a very, very impactful film for me. Maroon's virus begs the question, how far would you go? And how far is too far revenge? Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you want to see more from me, please subscribe, and I'm always working on new movies and new stuff, and I have a really exciting project I'm working on right now, and I cannot wait to show you guys. Until then, I will see you all next time. Thanks for sitting down with me and taking a look at the past. Don't open any links from Hallie Jorgensen Roby Show anytime soon on your computer, please.